Alright, so chapter 123 has a lot of lore drops and world building coming off of the info we got in 122, as well as some new information with Chiaki and Kunishige. So chapter 123 opens with a meeting between military officials and scientific experts regarding the enchanted blade plan. And it hinges on a few key breakthroughs. First, they need to create a vein within the katana that allows it to be supercharged with spirit energy, allowing the wielder to command immense power. However, the biggest obstacle is the Daidanseki itself. It cannot be normally refined into steel because it is extremely volatile under heat, becoming highly reactive and risking calamity. One of the officials, whose name I unfortunately forgot, is advocating for Kunishige to be given the chance to refine the Daidanseki. The problem is that Kunishige lacks the reputation and credibility necessary to earn the trust of the higher-ups. From their perspective, if something goes wrong, the consequences could be catastrophic, so they're understandably hesitant to take the risk. Following the inquiry into the Kagurabachi clan from the previous chapter, the group finally receives an update, and we get some new interesting information. The Kagurabachi clan consists of fire sorcerers, and Flamebone is revealed to be a mystical weapon of incredible power that very few people can wield. Members of the clan appear to be completely immune to ordinary fire and cannot be burned under normal circumstances. However, the pregnant wife of the clan patriarch was burned by the child in her womb. This immediately signaled to the clan that the baby would become the first Flamebone wielder in over 400 years. That child, of course, is none other than Hayuki the goat. What's even crazier is that the clan seems to be willing to use a baby Hayuki in their efforts against the Mikaboshi a year from then. It's both hilarious and incredibly depressing that a 1-year-old is being considered as a weapon of war, but it highlights just how desperate the situation has become. However, they don't have time, and the Mikaboshi could invade at any moment. The chapter then shifts to Chiaki's perspective and backstory before she became the Soga princess. We see the previous princess, and we learn that Chiaki's appointment was completely unexpected. Since she came from a branch family rather than a main line, her selection threw her mother into panic. Chiaki remembers the day vividly because it was the last time she physically interacted with Kunishige, and she passed out after being chosen, and Kunishige carried her home, only to be scolded by her mother afterward. We also get a glimpse of younger versions of Azumi, Kunishige, and Shiba, and we learn that Chiaki always wanted to spend time with them and run around the neighborhood, but once she became the princess, she was no longer allowed to freely associate with them, as she became a representative not only of the Soga clan, but of Japanese sorcery as a whole. Even so, she continued to exchange letters with Kunishige through Shiba's help. Eventually, she was caught, and while her mother tried to protect her from the worst consequences, she never stopped reminding Chiaki of her duties and responsibilities and how she no longer just represents herself. Chiaki is constantly stripped of her humanity. She's forced to bear the burden of prophetic visions, constantly witnessing her friends being injured, killed, or brutalized while being powerless to intervene. Within her own clan, she ceased to be treated as a person or individual and becomes a tool or figure, only a necessary cog in a larger system. That loss of autonomy is what ultimately pushes her towards self-sacrifice. In Chiaki's eyes, her own life no longer belongs to her. Whether she's trapped as the princess of the Soga clan or forced to become a mother for the Mikaboshi king's child, her agency is being stolen either way. And the latter is obviously far worse, but by sacrificing herself, she believes she can at least prevent greater suffering. I love this aspect of Chiaki's characterization. The story constantly emphasizes how her autonomy is being taken away from her, and when she's under this amount of pressure, she still chooses to burn herself further, showing her selflessness behind the lack of self-worth she feels due to the circumstances. We then learn that the Soga clan strongly prefers for power to remain within the main bloodline. As a result, sacrificing Chiaki is politically convenient because they also don't expect her to pass down the power of prophecy. To make matters worse, a baby girl was born 6 months ago to the clan's direct lineage. This development creates even more pressure on those supporting Chiro and those opposed to sacrificing Chiaki to the Mikaboshi. The chapter ends on a heartbreaking note. In the final panel, we see Kunishige reading what is likely the last letter he will receive from Chiaki. Alright, so this chapter is really interesting as we get more reasons why Akimura and Kunishige would be motivated to do the enchanted blade plan and also to defend his sister. And the crash out is a little bit more understandable, but obviously is never justified. But I can see how this sort of perspective of Akimura's sister being directly involved in this matter now by the Mikaboshi would push him over the edge to possibly committing great acts of violence. And we really don't know what the current status of Chiaki is in present day Kagurabachi, so there could have been some sort of thing that went wrong prior to the malediction that caused Kimura to really just go over the edge. I wouldn't be surprised to find out if Chiaki potentially got pregnant before actually being sent to the Mikaboshi in some sort of agreement that probably went under the table that nobody really knew about until it would be official. And this could have potentially led to just something going wrong in the sense of her having Chihiro there. She maybe dies. Kimura goes and is able to recover him and bring him back to Kunishige, but really have no idea what happened in his backstory that really pushed them to, or pushed Akimura specifically to really go over the edge. And really just don't know what the current status of Chiaki is at all, unless I missed something. But there really is a huge mystery as to what happened to her character during the war and then after the war. So really interested in finding out what happened with that, but we'll just have to wait until next chapter.